Eli Theseus.
And my name is Gabriel Eros. And together, we're the Parea.
The current tag team in the whole world.
World Series Wrestling Tag Team Champions.
Yes, the kings of the continent, as some would like to.
We have a lot of things, the kings of Mykonos, now the kings of the continent, sculpted by the gods of Mount Olympus. You know, a lot of people say that we're fathered by Zeus himself, but
as the legend says.
There's a lot of scriptures. A lot of scriptures
written about the history of the Parea,
yes.
Our bloodline,
the Odyssey.
Our warrior bloodline, the Odyssey that we've been on for a number of years, which has ultimately led us to a major milestone, which is how we sit before you right now, suited up, fitted to perfection, with the most prestigious championships that can be won on this continent, the World Series Wrestling Tag Team Championships.
However, bro, it wasn't always that way, hey?
No, it wasn't always that way.
We've been here with World Series for a very long time now. When did we first wrestle for this? Was it 2018?
Yeah, it was 2018.
Yeah, I think something that's important to note that a lot of people maybe know, maybe don't, because we have been with this company for quite some time, is Adrian was one of the first to see what we had. He saw what we had within us, and he gave us a platform to express ourselves. In 2018, our first ever World Series Wrestling match, we actually flew ourselves to Melbourne for the opportunity. Did we hire a car?
Yeah, we did hire a car.
We hired our own car out of our own pockets for the opportunity.
We stayed at a family member's house and hired a car at the airport, and we're doing the whole Melbourne leg we were doing independently.
Yeah.
So we had to find somewhere to stay, get yourself to the venue, fly yourself in, and you'll be wrestling local talent.
That's it. World Series Wrestling the Parea. We got this.
However, before that, I think it's important to note, this was when we had solidified our first booking with World Series Wrestling. Before that, we had to try and fight our way onto the shows, because what they used to do was various internationals would hold seminars for the talent that were wrestling in the schools. So the previous tour, before we got onto our first tour, we showed up to the Adelaide show at the Don Polsky Centre, and we paid to do the Brian Cage seminar, right? This is going to, help add wheels to the story. But we participated in the Brian Cage seminar, and the standouts would be offered a match, but it was a dark match. So it was before the show actually started, while the fans are filing into the building. So at that time, we were building anticipation all week, like, man, this is going to be our opportunity. This is going to be our break.
It's our big moment.
This is our big moment. We go and do these seminars and we don't get a spot.
You know what's funny about that though? That's probably worth noting that people would like, is a big part of the reason that we didn't get picked for this. I can only speak for myself in this regard because it was my fault. There's this Chinese restaurant in Guja Street called Ding Hao, and we were obsessed with it at the time. And before this massive opportunity, we thought it'd be a great idea to go and eat Ding Hao, like all this Chinese food. And I was sitting up in the Don Polsky Centre in the stands, and I'm pumping down this Chinese food, like, yeah, this is going to give me energy. And this is before I had any idea about nutrition or anything like that. And I'm eating this Chinese food maybe a mere 25 minutes before this Brian Cage seminar. And we do this Brian Cage seminar. It gets to, like, obviously it's not going to be easy. And it gets to, like, towards the end, and man, this Chinese food is sitting here up in my throat, and I'm just clenching my teeth, trying not to throw up, and I'm trying to do all these moves and all this cardio stuff that we're doing in the seminar, and like I just collapse on the floor holding my stomach, like trying not to throw up. And Brian's like, what are you doing? Like, get up. Like, what's going on here? Like, this isn't hard. And to be honest with you, I'm a pretty good athlete, as everyone probably is aware. And people in the seminar, not to discredit anyone, but they're nowhere near on our level. And I'm on the floor holding my stomach like a softie because I've just eaten this Chinese food.
At the time, he was known for his athleticism and his agility.
Yes.
And that was what he would always showcase anytime he was presented with an opportunity to stand out. As you can see, a lot's changed over the years. The athleticism is still there. However, you have adopted the psychological tactics.
Well, it's easier to punch someone in the head than to jump off the top rope and land and then hit him. What a pain in the ass.
To verbally crawl inside his opponent's head and use his fists rather than, resorting to the top all the time.
We missed this opportunity because I bottled it with the Chinese food, and we probably weren't good enough at that time because we weren't ready.
When you're 21 and when you're just starting out in wrestling, you think everything's the fucking end of the world.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you miss out on something, it's like, oh my God, all this work I've done, all this work, you know, like fucking work, you know what I mean? You're a chaos. Yeah. So like, yeah.
I remember just watching this show and thinking, this is incredible. This is absolutely like the greatest show I've ever seen. These guys are so talented, and the feeling that we got sitting there together was like, we have to do this.
Yeah.
Like, we have to be on this show.
To be a bit more behind the scenes here, the reactions that these guys were getting in their matches were reactions that we could only ever dream of at the time.
Yeah.
And all these years later, like a lot of, and this is just a testament to our learning capabilities of like observing what we see and like applying ourselves. The reactions that we've had in some of our World Series wrestling matches, it's like, man, like that was what we were aspiring towards, and now here we are. You know, it's just time.
When we mentioned of us, you know, we flew ourselves to Melbourne for the opportunity. We hired a car. We put ourselves up in a family home in Melbourne. To the average person listening, they might think, well, that's a bit rough. Like, you know, shouldn't the promotion help them out? No. At the end of the day, they shouldn't. If you're a nobody and you're not going to draw them a dime, and you're actually not very good, and you want an opportunity, you should probably bust your ass, dig into your own pockets, and get yourself where you need to be.
That's how everybody
That's how
starts.
it should be.
Our first trips to Melbourne, we would drive out.
We drove ourselves over for not even $50 and put ourselves up.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of the business.
Yeah.
And anyone who thinks otherwise is just entitled or stupid. Why in God's name should anyone book you if you're not going to do any business for them?
Yeah.
You know, that's really the reality of it. If you're not doing business for them, they're just doing you a favor.
Yeah.
However, let's go back even one more year. Okay, this is crazy now.
We're giving you all the nuggets.
We're giving you this. We started somewhere. We're still going back.
2017.
Was it 17 or 16?
17.
Let's start even right at the start. Adrian, this is the first time we ever met him. His son wanted to have a birthday party which involved wrestlers, and somehow, somewhere, he met Right City Wrestling, where we actually started our training. And Right City Wrestling said they'd host a birthday party for Adrian's son. So all his kids are there, all his friends were there, and I got given this match. I think Elijah was injured at the time or something like that. So I got given this match, and I went out there and I had this really fun, amazing match, and the kids were going mental and they were all getting around me, and Adrian saw me and was like, wow, like, this guy's really good. Like, he's young, he's athletic.
He's Greek.
You know, he's ethnic, so he loves that about us. So long story short, when he decided to run World Series Wrestling, the first ever, the comeback tour, I think it had like Ricochet.
2017.
I don't know.
Ricochet, Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah, unbelievable lineup.
Yeah.
And he wanted to book me. Keep in mind, at this time, I think
I was about to go to Calgary to do the Lance Storm camp.
Eli's getting ready for Lance Storms. I'm now, oh my God, this is the biggest opportunity of my entire life. I'm getting a platform. I've been wrestling for 1 year. It's all I've been wrestling for. I'm nowhere near ready for this opportunity.
You've had about 4 matches, probably 4 or 5 matches.
I'm not very good. I'm just handsome, young, athletic, sexy. I've got all the things, but I'm actually not very good at wrestling just yet. And I have this opportunity, I'm training for it. And at the time, Adrian was saying, you know, we might even do a documentary on you and this and that, and all these ideas he had. And I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be the biggest opportunity of my life. And I'm just out of training, maybe a month before this massive opportunity. And I got thrown out of the ring, and my foot lands on the corner of a mat, and I snap my ankle. Just absolutely snap it. And it's pretty funny because as I'm like, I know I've snapped it, and I'm sort of like, you know when you hurt yourself and you sort of try to run it off? As I'm running, my ankle just keeps rolling underneath me. And I remember just lying down in the car park on the concrete, on the bitumen, and just like looking at my foot and taking my shoe off, my ankle was this big. And the first thing I thought of was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this World Series match? And then I went to the hospital, got scans, fractured ankle. It actually rolled so far under that it snapped on one side and then chipped all the bones on the other side because the bones hit each other. So it was pretty bad.
It was almost as if your whole life flashed before your eyes.
I felt like that. And I remember going to this specialist because they didn't know if I needed surgery yet. And he was like, I was like, how long am I going to be out? And he goes, oh, I don't know, 12 weeks. And World Series is in, let's say, 3 weeks. And I looked at him, I thought I was like in a movie, like one of those superheroes. And I said, I'm going to wrestle in 3 weeks. And my dad was next to me, and they both just started laughing at me. And I started like clenching my teeth, trying not to cry. So that was where it was all meant to start for me in World Series, and that didn't happen. And then we were both together the next one at the seminar, and that didn't happen. So I guess then destiny brought us together for this Melbourne trip, and let's go back where we started now.
So this initial World Series Wrestling tour culminated out of us becoming the PCW Tag Team Champions over in Melbourne. Now, PCW is the venue that the Southeastern Entertainment Centre at Ferntree Gully, where World Series Wrestling have done basically all of their shows since this initial run, or this recent run, in Melbourne. And so I believe at the time it was kind of like a collaboration between PCW, RCW in Adelaide, and World Series Wrestling. So it was going to be the Parea from RCW, and at the time the Brotherhood, Sid Parker and Wake, who were currently the PCW Tag Team Champions. We were going to win the PCW Tag Team titles from them in Melbourne in spectacular fashion, and then defend them in a rematch at World Series Wrestling. However, in the weeks leading up to that show, Sid Parker, I believe, suffered a pretty brutal injury and was unable to do the show. So the match went from being the Parea versus the Brotherhood to the first fairly well-known match between the Parea and the Natural Classics.
The Natural Classics. And that was really special for us because we are pulling back the curtain a little bit here. We're all brothers. It was a very special moment for us all. Especially at that time being so young and this being the biggest opportunity that any of us have ever had in front of this crowd and this tour and this scenario. So it was a very fitting and beautiful moment for us all to sort of get our little break.
And so we had this match, which if you go back and watch it now, it's probably about 8 minutes long, and it's just a real everything we can all do, just throw it at the wall. You know what I mean? Because that was our mentality at the time. We didn't understand that wrestling is much more nuanced and complex than that, and it's not just all about showing everybody absolutely everything that you can do physically. But that's what that match was. If you go back through the archives and watch that match, it's just a lot of spectacular, innovative offense, but not a lot of feeling.
Yeah, we just did everything we could. And what was really funny about that, I think, well, not funny, at the time it was really heartbreaking, because at that moment we thought, this is our big moment, we're the biggest stars in the country, we're going to make it to the top of the mountain. Because all this really is, this story that we're telling you now, is our journey to the top of the mountain and so forth. And at this point, we thought we were already at the top of the mountain.
We've got belts, we're the PCW Tag Team Champions, and walking out to the show with belts,
we finish this match and then we go to the merch table thinking we're going to sell this merch, we're the coolest guys, everyone's going to come up to us. And I remember going to the merch table, this specific memory, and some guys come, like, no one's coming up to us, of course, because they're all going to see the internationals, as they should. Who are we at this stage? And these guys sort of came up to us. I was like, oh, finally going to sell something. And he goes, oh, it was really nice of them to like put you on the card instead of, putting you on the pre-show. And I was just thinking, wow, what a kick in the nuts. Like, I think I'm this big star, and they're almost giving us the sympathy, like, good job, kids. Like, you got a shot.
When you go to these meet and greets, you expose yourself to a lot of out-of-pocket statements from the fans. And that's the give and take if you're going to put yourself in an environment where it's a meet and greet. That's what they're there to do. They want to speak to you. They want to get a little bit more than just what they see from behind the guardrail. Whereas I feel nowadays, if anyone was to disrespect us like that, it wouldn't particularly end well for them.
And they know, but the thing is, we haven't given anyone any reason to disrespect us anymore. Yes. Back then, we thought we were King Dick, but really, come on, we're these young kids, and we did a few frog splashes on a show.
Let's see what they can do.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the story of our initial break in World Series, and then from there, we had a few other little matches like that. We versed the Rude ones at the Dom Polsky Centre. We went back to. Did we do another one in Melbourne or not? Together?
I think that was it. 2018.
I was.
Victory for the
given the opportunity, I think the next tour potentially, to work a singles match against a big international superstar of the time, which was a really cool experience. But again, it was almost a bit of a they've done well, let's just give them a little shot. And I executed and it was great, but it's still, you can tell it wasn't there for us just yet, and there was a bit of turmoil between us. We weren't sure if we wanted to be 100% this tag team, or if we were even going to try and push to make it in this business. So there was a lot of up in the air things happening.
It was that time where things were getting quite real, and it was like we were being exposed to the reality of the pro wrestling industry, and it wasn't a fantasy anymore. Because when you start out, it's a fantasy. I'm being let back behind the curtain, and I'm being taught how to do this, and now I'm ready to actually start working my craft in front of paying audiences, and it's all sunshine and rainbows. But then once you get smacked with that reality check, it's like, man, is this really something I want to continue to pursue? And World Series Wrestling was one of those big reality checks of showing us how this stuff really works and how bad do you actually want it, and are you cut out to do what is required to operate at a high level.
Because it's when you're on a local show and you're wrestling with your peers and people that you train with and people that you know, that's one thing. And you can be like, oh wow, I'm the best here. And then you take yourself out of that environment and put yourself on a show with, Brian Cage, Johnny Down Under, Matt Cardona, all these top superstars of the world. And you think, wow, I have a lot of work to do if I want to make it in this industry. So that was really important for us. In one way, World Series was very important because if we didn't get that reality check early on, we'd still think we were just a big fish in a small pond. So we had to get that reality check to expose ourselves to how much work needed to be done.
World Series Wrestling is a good example to demonstrate the circulation of the pro wrestling economy, I believe, because the bigger companies, which sign people to lucrative contracts and give them big platforms with TV time, they filter talent in and out. And then talent will go from being in the WWE to then coming down to other organizations in other countries or in other parts of North America, and then they sort of filter down to the big independent companies. Now, World Series Wrestling is the one company in Australia who brings big name internationals and creates a really high profile environment. So being a young up and coming independent wrestler, your first exposure to a super professional environment in Australia is generally going to be when you have your first World Series Wrestling booking or tour, because you're in a locker room full of guys who do this day in and day out for a living, and you get to see this is what it's like if I'm doing this full-time professionally. So that was a big kind of reality check for us, I think, initially, and just to be in 2019 to be exposed to, man, this is what this actually is. Am I cut out for it?
Yeah, and it's sink or swim. You get given that opportunity. Adrian's like, here you go, guys. Here's your opportunity. You either execute or you don't. And if you don't, you're gone. You know, and that's how it is. And I think that's a really good transition into this next part of the story, because we were in this period at the end of 2018, start of 2019, thinking, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Are we going to pursue this? And then the whole world locks down. And to be honest with you, as bad as it was for a lot of people, that was one of the best things that ever happened to the Parea, because it gave us the time to look within ourselves and look at each other and look at ourselves in the mirror and think, is this for us? Is this what we're going to do? Are we going to pursue this for real? And the answer to all of those questions was yes. And then we laid out a plan. We got a number of things in order. That's probably when you'd see, if you've been following us that long, when our bodies started coming a long way, when our work started coming a long way, when the Parea really evolved or started evolving into what it is now. It's still evolving, and it took a long time to come to this. But would you say that's really where it all started clicking for us, just coming out of that lockdown or that COVID era?
Yes, when we were locked into our rooms and we had to really reevaluate, because you've got to remember at the time, in hindsight, it was what it was. We locked down for a little while, and then we all came out and the world sort of slowly came back to a semblance of normal. But at that time, I can remember particular moments where I was sitting in my backyard, staring at the sky, and I genuinely thought in my heart, I'm never going to wrestle ever again. That's what I thought. Yeah. I thought, this is life now. They're locking us up, and we're never going to come out. And that's it, it's over. I'm never going to wrestle again. Yeah. And all I had at that time really was wrestling.
Yeah, and it was, and for myself, for transparency, I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but like I wasn't sure if this was for me at that stage, just because everything going on in my life and the world, I was like, is this really what I want to do? You know? I have a university degree. Should I go and just pursue this and keep my family happy and do what I'm meant to do? Or do I love this enough to pursue it? And like, that's the window where we had to ask ourselves these questions.
Sure. What work can you do on wrestling when you can't go to a wrestling ring or you can't go to the gym? Well, study. So we just spent countless hours studying.
And that's one thing I want to add for if you're listening and you're a kid out there and you're aspiring to be a wrestler, or you already are a wrestler and you want to get to where we are or further, there's always something you can do. We found a way. There's a lot of people, I'd say 98% of wrestlers in COVID just sat back and said, well, I can't do anything. And that's why they're all shit, or they didn't progress.
And look how many of them quit.
Yeah, they just found it's not for them. But for us, where you can train your mind all the time. We were doing promos every single day.
Yeah.
We joined. Carlo Cannon has a school in Melbourne, and he was doing Zoom classes with kids all around the world. He has people in Malaysia, people in Singapore, people in Australia, and we paid to join these classes just to learn, just to have a different perspective, and
Carlo would set us homework, and we would go off and do homework
for wrestling.
And on Fridays, every Friday, so he would set a promo challenge, and you would get given a wrestler that was in the calls, and you've got to do a promo on this person with XYZ. And every Friday night, it was like, all right, bro, Friday night, it's promo class. We would all jump on our Zoom calls, and we would show our promos.
Yeah.
And everyone would have a good time, and hours would go by, and everybody was being productive, and we were all learning. So
and the point is, there's always something you can do, and you have to. If you don't do it, then you're just going to stay stagnant like everyone else. Like, how are you going to be better or expect to get booked on something like this? Or achieve your dreams of being signed to the WWE or AEW or whatever your dreams are, if you're just not going to do anything and you're going to use any excuse not to train. And then coming out of that, when it all sort of was said and done and the world started reopening up and wrestling started sort of happening again, I remember World Series announced this tour because their initial tour went on hold. And their big comeback tour was it Phoenix Rising? Phoenix Rising tour.
Yeah.
There it is. I remember me and Elijah sitting in my room and like, what should we do? What are our steps here to take all this work we've done and all these thoughts that we've had and put it into action? And we have to get on this next World Series tour. We have to. However we need to get onto it, we have to. And I remember we sat there and we drafted this message to Adrian, and it's just basically put it all on the line. I said, Adrian, we want this. We need this. We're going to make it. We've decided we're going to make it. Will you support us in our journey to the top? And he didn't have to do it. He didn't have to give us the match he did. He could have just given us another local match. But he gifted us, and we worked for it, this match against the Flippin' Machine to Adelaide Oval. And that was...
So it went from being seminars and fly yourself over and this and that and global pandemic and we're never going to wrestle again, to you're having the Tag Team Championship match in the McGarry Room in Adelaide Oval, and it's against this very established World Series Wrestling tag team who both these guys are very high profile and have a lot of momentum. So just to put that into perspective for us at the time, we're thinking, we have to nail this.
Yeah.
If we bottle this,
that's it.
We're finished.
Might as well just quit. Hang up the boots and let's go fucking scoop some ice cream. So this was it for us. We know we were self-aware and well-trained enough with having good mentors and good people around us. So like I said before, you have to execute in these situations. And we put all that pressure on ourselves, and for those that were in attendance and for those that have now watched it around the world, we executed.
It was also at a time where our relationship with the Adelaide audience was a little bit ruptured because of the way we'd been behaving over the last 2 years or so. And for whatever reason, that night when we walked out there and hit the ring, we were embraced and accepted and loved by our local audience.
Yeah.
And they treated us like the superstars that we are. And the momentum was in our favor right from the moment that we walked through the curtain. So it was just a matter of just fighting to the absolute death after that and trying to win the championships. On that particular occasion, unsuccessful.
It's important to note as well, it was you know in the movies when there's like something special in the air on a night? We had that night. Yeah. It was just, everything just sort of aligned for us. We were in top shape, we were mentally ready. It was really weird. We sort of stood behind the curtain, and we just started freestyling while our intro was going, just between each other. I can't think of
were
it.
rapping.
We were rapping to each
We were
other.
rapping.
And then our music drops, and we just looked at each other, and we just went
Let's
out
get
there,
out
and
there.
then the universe felt like it exploded.
And the big cherry on top of that was when the match was over, Brian and Flip took the middle of the ring and they stared us down, and we thought, oh, we're going to go again here. All right, well, they must be pissed off at our dirty tactics. They want to rumble again. But then Brian did something which he probably doesn't even remember, but we'll remember and we'll always remember it. He grabbed the microphone.
I gotta be honest, I was stoked, so stoked to come back, because World Series Wrestling is, by God, one of my favorite places to be. However, when I found out that these two were our first opponents, I wasn't that impressed.
And he praised us in front of the World Series Wrestling audience, in front of our hometown, and in front of the whole locker room.
And normally, I mean, you hit us in the dick, you punch us in the chain, that wouldn't really, result in a handshake after the match. But as I just said, we were impressed. But goddammit, we were impressed. These fans were impressed. We get the fight for our chance, we got them all. So, with that being said,
And he shook our hands, and he grabbed Flip, and they left us the ring. And they played our music, and we were the last thing that they saw in that match. Not the champions, not the internationals, the Parea.
And it's very special for a number of reasons, because perception is reality. And it almost felt like all the work and all the sacrifice for that moment culminated with Brian and Flip acknowledging us and going, you know what? These guys are special. I guess that's probably one of the most special moments of our career thus far. We've had a lot, but that's probably one of the most special and most memorable.
The fallout from that was the phone started ringing.
Yes.
And next thing you know, it's Perth are wanting to bring the Parea in, and various promotions in Melbourne are wanting to bring the Parea in, and Brisbane's wanting to bring the Parea in, and now it's okay. These guys have got the tick of approval of being the top prospects in the continent. So we embraced that, and we doubled down on the work.
Yeah. So it's very easy in that moment to say, we've done the work, we did it, we're the best ever, and then just start slacking off and doing these bookings and getting sloppy. But we tripled down, I would say. The diet was more on point, the training was more on point, the psychology, the wrestling, everything was just like, this is it. We've been given the tick, and now we have to run with this, because if we don't, we're going to go back down to the bottom of the barrel.
I believe that the secret to the Parea's success is being able to adapt to our surroundings, no matter who we're in the ring with. And I would say that is the Parea style, is being able to be innovative no matter who you put us in the ring with, and we can create magic, and we can tell a story that can resonate with just about anybody. That's the secret to the Parea. So however we found that, I'm not sure, but we just kind of did, and it's a credit to us for applying ourselves and making those sacrifices. There's a lot of things that we don't have in life, and that's due to the fact that we've dedicated essentially everything to wrestling for almost 10 years now, and this is our lives, and you see to the left of us the fruits of our labor, which we're going to continue to tell you how we got here from there.
We're nearly there now. I guess from there, the next tour was
Unleash
Hell, where we did Melbourne and Adelaide again. And unfortunately, we're once again unsuccessful on our claim to the World Series Wrestling Tag Team Championships. However, we got closer. The Adelaide show again was very special. We had a great match in Melbourne, a great showing in Melbourne. We were fingertips away on both occasions. But in Adelaide again, we wrestled one of our coaches and original mentors, Matt Grimbasso, and Eric Redbeard, who's a legend of our industry, as many know. And again, Eric Redbeard saw something in us, and after the match, pulled us aside, lifted our arms, and again left us the stage.
It was just one night that he was receiving a chain straight to the face. And I'd say that's a sign of approval.
So again, we were so close, we got the acknowledgement, but we couldn't get it done. It was at that point there, it was like, are we ever going to get this done, or are we just going to keep, wasting everyone's time? Because it started getting to that point, it's like, are we just wasting everyone's time now?
And is acknowledgement's not enough.
Yeah,
while acknowledgement helps, acknowledgement's not enough. We want more. We want everything. So fast forward to Full Throttle Tour. Now the dates have increased again. So this is the first time we're doing basically a full loop of the country. So
And it was a full loop. It was Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane, Sydney. And then after that, we had to go back to Melbourne to wrestle again. We wrestled. It's ridiculous the way we got through that week. And I guess we'll get to the point shortly. Defending our honour across the country as well.
Yes.
You wanna get on that?
So it was night 2 in Melbourne. We get I think at that point it was our 4th opportunity.
At the championships.
Our 4th opportunity at the championships. We're going up against Eric Redbeard again, former member of the Wyatt family, former multi-time WWE Tag Team Champion, with our mentor and our coach, Matt Grimbasso, who in his own right is one of the best wrestlers that this country has ever produced and is a world-class performer. And he's teaming up with this behemoth, and he's a behemoth himself, except we've been up against them before, so we're coming in with experience. But this was the night we have to execute.
Yeah, like
now.
we were saying, are we wasting everyone's time? If we're gonna get it done tonight, then the fans are gonna be like, how many chances are we giving these guys?
And Warbeard proceeded to beat the living shit out of the
my God.
for about 20 minutes.
That I've never had my ass kicked. Excuse the French here. You know, we express ourselves quite openly, which I think people appreciate. I've never had the shit kicked out of me like that in my life.
Yeah.
Do you understand how big these guys' hands are?
Yes.
Oh,
Do you understand how strong they are?
it's just getting
When they
bashed.
pick you up and slam you into that mat, it's no bullshit. It's spine shattering.
You know?
And they're throwing you into guardrails, and they're deliberately laying you on the guardrail right in front of the fans and chopping you as hard as they can to try and make it as loud as possible and trying to hurt their own hands in the process. So we're having our chests caved in, we're being punched in the face, we're being slammed around, we're being thrown off the top rope.
And it felt like a bit of at one point, I remember being conscious in there, maybe the 7th time Eric Redbeard chopped me with his
Frying pan.
hand the size of an elephant's foot.
Yes.
And I thought to myself, these guys are just doing the whole, oh, you want a shot at the belts, do you, kids? And then just proceeding to bash us.
Yes.
And rightly so, to be honest with you. I was conscious of like, it's fair enough. We've been pricks. And we want something that you have.
Yes.
But what's important to note is that regardless of the beating that we took and the years of our lives that we probably lost in that match, we walked out your World Series Wrestling Tag Team Champions.
The Greek gods prevailed.
The Parea! The Parea champions! The Golden Prophecy!
We stood above.
Finally.
We chopped down 2 massive Greta mountains.
That's it. And once we were ready, the championships came home, and we stand before you still the champions. And so then that self-fulfilling prophecy took place, and then we went on to Adelaide and walked in as the new champions, and were met with a thunderous home crowd ovation once again. But this time they were proud that their boys had brought the championships home, because you've got to remember, up until now, every team that's held these championships has consisted of at least one international.
Correct.
So
We're the first local Australian boys
to hold these world championships.
Yeah.
These have been taken all over the world, and they're defended amongst international talent. So it's not just a local Australian championship.
I think that's very important to note, because we've had countless domestic championships, but these are legitimate world champions. I genuinely believe that we are world champions.
Yeah, world tag team champions.
There's something to that. I think that's something to be very proud of, because there isn't any other current tag team that is unsigned, that isn't on a TV deal, that are world champions or ever have been.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a credit to World Series Wrestling, and it's a credit to the Parea and every other team that's held the titles to be able to elevate these championships to that level with the exposure and with the level of competition. And so we defended in Adelaide against ABC, who former TNA Tag Team Champions, multi-time, to get that victory over them, our first title defense in our hometown, and the standing ovation we received afterwards, and being able to talk to our local crowd and tell them what it means to us to stand here now as the champions was a moment that we'll never forget, and it's hard to describe the emotions we experienced that night, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess just from there on, well, I was about to say we just defended the belts after that. However, we didn't. We actually lost our championships. After that, we climbed the mountain, and just as we were planting the Parea flag deep into the soil,
out came Eric Young and Frankie Kazarian,
two absolute OGs of the fight game,
who were not initially scheduled to take part in that tag team championship.
It's a big thing for the Parea is the preparation. We like to prepare for our opponents.
So we were under the impression that we were going up against a local team who we'd beaten before, named Top Tier, and we were going to defend our newly won prestigious championships, which we'd worked our entire careers for in Brisbane. And let's be honest, we did get a little cocky that night.
If you two are anything like the bums in this city sitting around here,
He may be right, but he shouldn't say it.
and if you two are anything like the Brisbane Broncos or the Brisbane Lion losers,
We just defended a few nights before in Perth, and we main evented that night, and we beat the Untouchables, who are, again, regarded as the best tag team in Australia, and again, ABC in a triple threat match. So we were riding high. We're the best.
And so we should.
We're the
best.
Us. I don't know. We're the greatest tag team in the history of the world.
True.
Nobody can touch us.
I agree, bro.
we said open challenge. You got no chance against the greatest tag team in the history of the world.
We're just destroying everybody, and we're beating them. We're beating them realistically at our own game. They're trying to out wrestle each other and everything, and the Parea, we always find a way. So we're standing there in Brisbane, and this is a week or so. This is like a week after the Brisbane Lions had just choked in the grand final against Collingwood.
Yeah, I buried the whole city. I told him, you're all washed, just like your teams. You can't win a game. You're all finished. I'm going to clean you all up.
It was a terrible week for Brisbane because their NRL team lost the Super Bowl.
They're a finished city. That city. You know,
what's the grand
whatever gives a shit.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're a finished city. All their teams are finished, and we walked in there the champions to finish off their useless.
It's a disgraceful state.
It stinks as well.
Really, it's a disgraceful state. So
anyway,
so we walked in there and showed them a little bit of prestige as your reigning World Series Wrestling Tag Team Champions.
And then out comes from the retirement village,
Eric Young,
two blokes with their jocks. They've pulled them up this high from
Frankie
here.
Kazarian.
You know.
The Parea, right?
That's right, bro.
I don't know what that is, and it's probably something cool, but it sounds like a crappy women's cologne to me.
And they got in our business and they inserted themselves into the match. And now listen, we're not just going to stand there and disrespect an entire city and tell them they're a bunch of losers and then back down from a challenge. That's not the way that the Parea are built. So we thought, you know what, we've just won another triple threat match against a local team and an international team.
Yeah.
What's different?
Bring our fixtures all up, you know?
Nothing's different.
Same
We're
stuff.
going to show you all how good we are. And it backfired big time.
Well, I guess we underestimated the fact, like, they've been doing it for 6 times longer than we've been alive.
That's right.
So
veterans of the game.
Veterans, and absolutely incredible humans as well. Very smart, and they understand this business and how to fight very well. And we put our foot in our mouths that night, unfortunately.
We did. The last thing I can remember was being upside down and being pole driven by Eric Young.
It felt like I was in a movie and you were being shot, and I was going, nah, you know?
And then I think I remember the referee counting to 3, and I opened my eyes and I was staring at the ceiling, and I turned my head to the left, and I see Frankie Kazarian and Eric Young holding the Parea's World Series Wrestling.
It didn't feel right because it felt like they were holding my thing. You know, it's not as if, I lost them and now it's theirs. It's they're holding what we own, you know? Almost like we leased it to them. That's what it felt like in my head. Because I'm thinking, there's no way that we're not winning these after what we've been through. We've just told you what we've been through to get to this moment, and we're going to lose them in that stinkhole Brisbane.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and then what made it even more demoralising was that World Series Wrestling doesn't normally go to Brisbane. We normally hit the more, the more well-off cities like Sydney, Melbourne, beautiful Adelaide. We don't normally go to Brisbane.
Yeah,
and then we're standing there now we're championshipless in Brisbane.
And you know, it was it was very nice, I guess, as a person, but at the same time, as a professional, I felt just one more kick in the ass on the way out. We get backstage and Eric and Frankie walking around with our new belts and they go, "You guys are really good. You guys are incredible." And I'm thinking, "Thanks, but you just kicked my ass and took my belt."
Yeah, and what they were saying things like, they were saying all these nice things to us, like, "You guys should be on TV."
Yeah,
man,
we know.
Why are you guys? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then so secretly, when we afterwards we were like, "Hey, bro, did you hear what they said to us?" And then and again,
it was a beautiful moment, I guess, backstage. But it just felt just one more kick in the ass, you know.
And so there was one more night left on the tour, and we were over in Sydney.
Yeah, but not in the nice area. It was pretty shit.
And now here's another thing you got to realise, right? When you start to head to those states in Australia that are a little bit further up, they're a little bit closer to the equator.
Yeah.
I think something, the gravity up there or something starts to kind of change the way that the people sort of develop. And so I know Sydney's a beautiful city. Sydney is synonymous with Australia. When people think of Australia, they think of Sydney, Sydney Opera House, Sydney Harbour Bridge, this and that. And so, but that doesn't reflect the people.
If we were in a nicer area, somewhere like Parramatta, where there's a few more ethnics and people that look a bit more like us, I would have felt a bit more at home.
Where were we?
Penrith, I think. I don't really know much about that area, but I do know it stinks.
Yes.
Yeah, it stinks of shit. So.
And now, so we've had 2 regular 2-on-2 tag matches where we prevailed.
Yeah.
2 triple threat matches, and now they threw us in a fatal 4-way.
How many blokes do I need to be?
Tag team champions.
You know what I've been through to get here?
Right. In Sydney, where, fun fact, the Parea had never wrestled before.
Haven't
we never wrestled in Sydney
in
before.
Newcastle.
We never wrestled in Sydney before. So the first time we're walking into Sydney, we have all the odds stacked against us. We're the ones in the match that have everything to prove because we've just lost our tag team championships and it's the last leg of the tour. There's about 2,000 people in the building, and they're all a bunch of assholes screaming at us, disrespecting us.
5,000, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe 10,000?
Right.
Yeah.
15.
So anyway, the Velocities, ABC, who they're pissed off because they've lost to us twice, and these Yeros,
absolute Yeti.
Eric Young and Frankie Kazarian walking in
Yeti means
our
you call your grandfathers a Yeti.
Championships. These 2 papus walking in with our championships. Fatal 4-way rules. First pin wins. So we got to deal with all these other losers trying to pin each other. We didn't even have to get pinned to not become the tag team champions. But
we're just the goats at the end of the day. We studied the environment. We got the war tactics. We sat back and we realized, what do we need to do to win this match? We've wrestled everyone in this match at this point, so we understand all their tricks and whatnot, but they don't know all of our tricks because we don't really give a shit about following any rules and about, high-fiving, shaking hands, patting you on the arms. We don't care about that. I just want to win my belt back. That's all I really care about.
The key to success in a fatal 4-way match is to keep an eye on the competition, let them all dismantle one another, but you've got to make sure that you break up any pin that doesn't involve you.
Correct.
On top of that person. We picked our spots, we allowed these guys to pick each other apart, and then we swooped in, Hades Curse, 1, 2, 3, 2 times in one tour.
2-time World Series Wrestling Tag Team Champions. Look at that.
World Series Wrestling Tag Team Champions, the Parea. Walking out of the Full Throttle tour, full throttle out of that shit.
You know what we forgot to say? We actually came out in the main event as well. It's so good.
Yes.
We came out in the main event. Matt Cardona, he's had a bit of a chat to us backstage. So he said, I see something in you guys. He knows. He knows a champion when he sees one. And he goes, if I need anything in that main event, you're going to be there for me. I said, you pay me the right amount. Pay us, flick us a bit of cash. We'll do anything you want. It's a hard life out there. I've got to pay the bills.
Yes, absolutely.
So we came out there and we helped the brother out.
Is this it?
Oh!
What? What is the Parea doing?
and stood tall at the end of the main event as well. Well,
Not particularly.
we got the win. We got the result that was necessary. Everything after that gives a shit.
Here come the cavalry to even the odds.
Oh my God, Cassidy's gonna bash them.
Yeah,
You know?
who cares?
But anyway,
So now we stand before you, two-time reigning World Series Wrestling Tag Team Champions. We're coming into the Most Wanted Tour as the Most Wanted. Everyone's going to be vying for our championships, and we're ready to take on all comers. So we don't care. Everybody from the bloody Rock and Roll Express to the Natural Classics to everyone in between. You want a piece of the Parea? Come and get it, because we're walking out of the Most Wanted Tour still the World Series Wrestling Tag Team Champions, and that's just the way it is. There's nothing you can do about it, because the Parea always find a way, because we're the best.
look at that, bro. Kings of the continent, right here. Is that good to answer your first question?